Japan just did what the world told it never to do again. A warship that doesn't officially exist launched stealth fighters that shouldn't be there. A U.S. Marine F-35B stealth fighter launches from not one carrier. Two, the JS Izumo and the JS Kaga, 27,000 tons each. For the first time since World War II, Japan has carrier aviation, 12 F-35B stealth jets per vessel, $1.2 billion to convert. Operating right now, 500 miles from China's coast. Beijing's response? 3 aircraft carriers scrambled immediately. Their pilots locked weapons radar directly onto Japanese jets. One trigger pull from a war that would reshape Asia forever. Here's exactly how a $2.4 billion conversion just made China's $50 billion navy obsolete. Officially, Japan calls them helicopter destroyers. That's what the paperwork says. Here's what they actually are. 27,000 tons, 814 feet of flight deck, heat-resistant deck coating, squared bow for fixed-wing operations, 12 F-35B stealth fighters, plus 8 V-22 Ospreys, plus 8 anti-submarine helicopters. These are aircraft carriers. The Japanese government refuses to call them that because Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution technically prohibits offensive weapons. A technicality, wrapped in an 814-foot warship. Now run the math. Japan didn't build from scratch. 2 phases of hull conversion per ship, $1.2 billion per vessel. China's Fujian cost $10 billion from zero. Japan bought carrier aviation for 12 cents on China's dollar. The weapon that makes these ships lethal isn't the hull, it's what's landing on them. The F-35B, the only short takeoff, vertical landing stealth fighter on Earth. Radar cross-section of 0.001 square meters, roughly the size of a golf ball on Chinese radar. Mach 1.6, 900-mile combat radius. No catapult needed, no runway needed. It lands on anything with a flat surface. Japan just deployed the world's most survivable stealth platform onto 2 ships. And those ships are already networked into every Aegis destroyer, every U.S. carrier strike group, and every F-47 operating in the Pacific. China's entire carrier strategy assumed Japan would stay on the sidelines. That assumption is now 80 years out of date. China's Fujian carries the J-35, 5th-generation stealth, EMAL's catapult launch. State-of-the-art on paper, the J-35 has never been in combat. 0 confirmed combat hours. Its first EMAL's launch happened September 22, 2025. 9 months ago, the F-35B has logged over 2,000 combat hours. Syria, Yemen. Operation Prosperity Guardian, the only carrier-capable stealth fighter on Earth with a verified combat record. That's not a technology gap, that's an experience gap. In a real Pacific conflict, the difference between a carrier that projects power and a carrier that gets sunk in the first 72 hours is exactly that gap. The full Pacific carrier balance, real numbers. China, 3 carriers. Liaoning, 65,000 tons, ski jump ramp, no catapult. Shandong, 70,000 tons, same limitation. Fujian, 80,000 tons. EMAL's catapult. Commissioned November 7th, 2025. Combined aircraft capacity, 120 jets across all 3. The USS Gerald R. Ford alone, 100,000 tons. 90 combat aircraft, 1 American supercarrier. The US operates 11 of them, but here's where Beijing's math completely breaks down. Add Japan's 2 F-35B carriers to the coalition picture. Suddenly, China isn't modeling a one-on-one fight. It's modeling a synchronized kill chain. US Ford-class supercarriers, Japanese light carriers with stealth jets forward deployed along the first island chain, and the F-47 as the network spine. Every F-35B flying from a Japanese carrier feeds real-time targeting data to F-47 systems operating hundreds of miles away. Japan also operates 8 Aegis-equipped destroyers, each carrying SM-3 Block 2A interceptors, the only ship-launched missile proven capable of hitting a ballistic missile in mid-flight. Now factor in China's primary counter-carrier weapon, the DF-21D carrier killer, 1,700-kilometer range, designed to strike U.S. carriers before they could get close enough to launch jets. Japan's carriers are already inside that perimeter. They were there before China could respond. China's war planners built a 20-year strike chain to defeat a U.S. Navy operating alone. It was never designed to defeat a U.S. Navy plus a Japanese carrier air wing that repositions overnight and vanishes into stealth. That's not an upgrade problem, that's a fundamental architecture problem. But here's the question nobody is asking. Can 12 F-35Bs on a 27,000-ton Japanese ship actually shift the Pacific balance of power? Or is this symbolic? Drop your answer in the comments. The best strategic take becomes our next full video. August 2025, the Philippine Sea. 3 carriers, 3 nations, JS Kaga, HMS Prince of Wales. 1 U.S. carrier strike group, operating in coordinated formation, 80 miles off China's eastern coast. China deployed 3 carrier battle groups in response. State media, routine monitoring. Their admiral, closely observing developments. 3 carriers for observation. Then December 8th, 2025, Chinese fighters locked fire control radar directly onto Japanese jets in the Philippine Sea. 1 decision away from an act of war. China isn't projecting confidence. China is projecting panic, and they should be. Japan didn't just build 2 carriers. Japan built 2 mobile airfields that cannot be bombed in place. China spent $100 billion constructing artificial islands, Fiery Cross Reef, Subi Reef, Mischief Reef, fortified runways, fixed positions, known GPS coordinates, targetable on day 1 of any conflict. The Izumo and Kaga move at 30 knots, 720 miles of repositioning in a single night. Their location is classified. You cannot pre-strike a ship you cannot find. China built a $100 billion island chain. Japan built 2 ships that made it strategically irrelevant. That's not a tactical problem. That's a physics problem. 42 F-35Bs ordered total. Right now, 12 per carrier. Kaga's Phase 2 conversion completes early 2027. Full capacity increases and the 202nd Tactical Fighter Squadron, Japan's first carrier air wing since World War II, is currently training 40 pilots for full combat operations. Japan just did something it hasn't done in 80 years. It doubled its defense budget. 2023, $50 billion, 1% of GDP. Today, $80 billion. 2027 target, 2.5% of GDP, approximately $100 billion annually. Carrier aviation. Long-range Type 12 missiles with a 1,000-kilometer strike range that can hit targets on mainland China from Japanese soil, and 42 F-35Bs that are already flying. Japan's 2025 defense white paper used language Tokyo has never used before. China poses, quote, an unprecedented and serious strategic challenge. That is not diplomatic boilerplate. That is a nation telling the world it is actively preparing for conflict. Run that math. $30 billion in new military spending. Every single year, a missile that reaches Shanghai. 2 operational carriers with stealth jets. China's expansion triggered exactly the response Beijing spent 30 years trying to prevent. Japan's carriers don't operate independently. They are embedded into the U.S. Pacific Command architecture at every level. The F-35B flying from the Kaga shares encrypted data links with Aegis destroyers, U.S. carrier strike groups, and the F-47 network the Pentagon fast-tracked specifically for Pacific operations. The F-47's AI brain processes millions of data points per second. Every F-35B in Japan's fleet becomes a sensor node, feeding targeting coordinates, threat signatures, and real-time radar data directly into the F-47's kill chain from positions China's radar cannot reach. The coalition Beijing is now facing: U.S. Ford-class supercarriers at 100,000 tons each. Japanese light carriers forward deployed 500 miles from China's coast. F-35Bs feeding the F-47's kill chain and airspace the plan cannot see. 8 Japanese Aegis destroyers forming the outer missile defense layer, each capable of intercepting China's ballistic missiles before impact. Pentagon intelligence assessments are direct. By 2028, a conventional conflict in the Taiwan Strait shifts from a scenario China internally models as costly but winnable to catastrophic defeat. That is why Chinese fighters locked radar on Japanese jets. That is why 3 planned carriers deployed to observe. That is why Beijing's military spending jumped 7.2% in 2025 alone. America didn't build Japan's carriers. America built the F-35B that makes them lethal. That's the difference. Japan just closed an 80-year chapter. The nation that lost 4 carriers at Midway in 1942, 248 aircraft, 3,057 men in 4 hours, now has carrier aviation again, armed with the most combat-proven stealth jet on Earth, networked into the most powerful naval coalition ever assembled in the Pacific. China built a $50 billion carrier program to dominate the Western Pacific. Japan converted 2 existing warships for $2.4 billion and achieved strategic parity. The era of China's unopposed naval expansion is officially over. Subscribe and see you in our next video.